Now, I understand that JP is going through some hype things, anniversary is just a couple of days away, but let's not forget about the NA side of things getting a crazy rerun, and let's just say you were able to resist the temptation that is Lady Avalon, because you aren't really in the business of supporting your allies, you're here to destroy your enemies, while also supporting your allies a little bit on the side. Yes, we're going to be talking about Summer Ibuki's rerun and whether or not she's worth rolling for, and I know a lot of people are concerned about this one because Ibuki are both on Raid Up right now, and they're both Arts AoE farming characters, and it's just a matter of which one is better. Who do I summon for ZTL? Give me the answer! Alright, sit down, calm down, relax. I'm going to give you all that info on what this character does in this video. But as per usual, if you enjoy the daily FGO upload, always having something FGO related in your subscription box to look forward to, a like on the video and maybe a little subscribe to the channel would go a long way, and it's absolutely free. Now with that being said, let's start breaking it down. So going into her hits, she is rocking the Double Buster Double Arch deck, which I guess is kind of relevant if you want to do like Immortal team comp stuff. You do want to have Double Arch, Double Buster to make sure you're always popping off with those arch chains, but realistically, you're not here for goofy stuff like that. You want to know if this character is going to be able to loop, and you probably are looking at that 0.38% NP refund stat and thinking, ZTL, is that a little bit on the low side? Is this character going to be okay? And I will tell you, for the most part, she's going to be fine, but there are some nodes where you might notice she's not refunding as much as you would like. It comes up in corner cases, usually against enemies that have more HP, against like an NP1 Summer Ibuki, where you're not able to get as much overkill on the NP because you're not doing as much damage. In those scenarios, you really are going to want to have like a plug suit option, but in this day and age, you've got a billion options to choose from, whether it's Lady Avalon for a 20% battery and a massive arts buff to really soup up her NP gain, or Oberon if you want to really take her damage to the maximum, or even Asclepius, who's kind of like a baby version of Castoria herself, giving the 20% battery, the extra NP gain, and later he's going to also be giving an arts buff. So it is something to note if you're going to be bringing her into different stages and stuff. There are some nodes where she might struggle a little bit, but generally, I mean, she's held in really high regard for a reason. This is really just something to keep in note if you're like, oh, I'm just going to bring my NP1 Ibuki against every single stage in the game. And in that case, she might struggle a little bit, but the refund is going to be okay. I mean, I've even gotten away with, doing certain nodes where there might be two enemies on one of the waves where the refund's not going to be as good, and that's because of some of the stuff that she's rocking in her kit. But before we dive into her actual skills, let's go to her passive skills, which isn't the craziest, but it is just kind of nice thing. So all in all, she's rocking 14% just free buster damage from Madness Enhancement and Dragonkind EX, which is nice because if you've ever used this character, you know the buster crits from this character can hit really hard, and that's because her buster cards are getting a little bit of extra damage from her passive skills and from her skill too, so they're actually going to be biting a bit harder than you would think. Now, I'm just going to advise you to pretty much disregard the 200 damage taken that she has on Dragonkind EX, because, that might be nice if you were going into a stage where she has some kind of type advantage or something. Maybe she would be able to live the odd hit here or there, but remember, this is a Berserker. A slight gust of wind is going to take her down, so I appreciate the sentiment of trying to give her some method of survivability, but it's really not enough to offset the Berserker class. It's a nice little touch, but something that's more important is the 20% buff removal resistance. If you have been playing FGO for a long time, you will notice that a lot of bosses nowadays are just gaining the ability to yeet all of your buffs. Like, they will just remove all of your buffs when you break one of their bars. Maybe they fire an NP, or they're like Ivan and they just have that on skill and can fire it on demand. Having a way to have some kind of counterplay against those types of bosses is absolutely immaculate, because it's one of the things that a lot of your supports don't really offer. You kind of need to have a character that specifically gives themselves buff removal resistance, otherwise there's not a real easy, natural way to implement it into your team. So the fact that she does have that on a passive doesn't mean it's going to always trigger, but you're going to be really thankful when it does, and a boss is trying to do something annoying, and your Ibuki can keep looping around, keep damaging the enemy, and that's thanks to one of her passives. Now, getting into her real skills, we have the first skill, Midsummer Goddess B. And this gives you a little bit of a glimpse into what I mean by the fact that she's not only a DPS, but she's also kind of a pseudo support in her own right. One of the things that I do like about Summer Ibuki over Summer Melucine is the fact that not only can she be a wave clearer for you, but she can also flex as a kind of additional support that you're bringing for another DPS. Usually if you're doing a multi-core setup, you're sacrificing the ability to plug suit for a third support, think something like double Castoria plug suiting in for an Oberon, because that Oberon is now going to be another DPS you're bringing. So if another one of your DPSs, the second one you're bringing, can also still function as a support, it can really help you out a lot, and she's giving you some really good things. 20% attack for the entire party, 30% critical damage, and 30% NP gain if you are a Summer Servant, all for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. It also does really help that you can kind of fit her into team comps that have either Buster or Arts characters in them, as we'll get into with her second skill, but just having the ability to help out with attack and NP refund on your Summer characters. I mean, think of all the really crazy Summer characters we have that are not only single target, but also AoE that you might want to combine with Summer Ibuki. I mean, hey, you could just take Summer Melucine and Summer Ibuki and put them on the same team. Why do they have to fight? She works really well with the newly released Summer Castoria if you want to have an AoE and single target character to kind of take down some of these 90++ nodes. But even if you don't have her, there's last year's Summer Eris, who's also a really strong single target arts character in her own right. There are a lot of characters you have to pull from here, and they can all get boosted by getting that additional NP refund rate and also being able to crit a little bit harder and get a bit extra attack if you are going to be more reliant on your face cards for clearing like those 90+ or 90++ nodes. So all in all, a very strong charisma that she's rocking on the first skill. The second skill is what really ties it all together for her being not only a DPS, but kind of a support as well, because Summer Cheerleader C is a 30% targetable Arts and Buster buff for 3 turns that also reduces that ally skill cooldown by 1. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the skill cooldown by 1 often isn't going to come up unless you're specifically trying to fit something in there. Maybe you're bringing a Koyanskaya, maybe that character already can reduce their own skill cooldown, then we get like a pen 4 and 5, so you can kind of lower it again. Maybe if you're going for something, that can be something you work towards, but more often than not, you're just going to be using this as either kind of a nice damage steroid for Ibuki, or passing it off to somebody else. For the Lilim Harlot rerun that we had on JP, I actually gave this skill to my Draco, who I was using for the 90++, having Ibuki clear the second wave, and Draco focus on wave 1 and 3 to take down the large enemies, and because my Draco was only NP1 over on JP, she needed this little extra damage to guarantee that without any RNG, she could take out the enemies. And that makes her just so valuable. Not only can she wave clear for you, if she's not going to be your main looper, she's still providing things for the party. You can also think about it in some kind of wacky way like this. If you're in a challenge quest, because Ibuki is pretty good in those as well, if you're in some kind of weird scenario where you need Castoria's charisma, but it's still down by 1 turn, I don't know how we got here, but for some reason you haven't used Ibuki's second skill, you can pass this off to your support because they can still use the arts buff to more refund their NP off their base arts cards, and then it also helps get their skills back. Now, I don't know how often that's going to come up for you, but I'm sure it's happened to some people. I can think of maybe in the last 3 or so years that I've been using this character, it maybe has come up like once. But hey, it's still nice when you do have it. The main long and short for skill 1 and 2 is that they function as not only good skills for her, giving her extra damage, giving her more refund. Remember that that Buster buff is really a 44% Buster buff, so her Buster crits are actually going to be hitting pretty hard, but also it can flex into a support DPS, which is very strong. Now, the third skill, Beach Apocalypse A+, it's just a lot of good stuff, right? It's a 50% battery, which is never going to be bad, 10 stars every turn for 3 turns, and then it gives her just huge star weight, which is going to need because Berserkers naturally do not have very high star absorption, so they really do need to fight for those. This has come up when my Ibuki was NP1, if there were some 90+s or 90++s that I was reliant on doing crits. The fact that you always have 10 stars in rotation and Ibuki is always going to be able to glorb those up because of the star weight does come in clutch if you are using an NP1 Ibuki and you need like just one of your face cards to get a crit, so that way you can guarantee down the enemy. For the most part, it's only going to come up when you get into like challenge quests and stuff. Just being able to consistently crit the enemy takes a little bit off of your Lady Avalon from having to gen all of the stars, and if you also got like a 20-30 or something, it means you'll pretty much be swimming in stars, you'll have a healthy amount running around, but for most people, it's just the 50% battery. It means that even if you get into a scenario where you're not looping enough, you have a big danger button you can always press to make sure you can fire your NP again. So all in all, first 3 skills, very strong, but that's not it, right? Because her NP is also quite good. Looking over at the Honorable Spirit of Ibuki, 8 channels surging waves. Its first effect is to remove all of the enemy's defensive buffs, which, as you could probably glean, is really good. It does get countered by bosses that will have unremovable buffs. Some bosses will have an unremovable dodge or invincibility, maybe it's a defensive buff. It is hard countered by stuff like that, but it will still find some good application for it. I mean, there are a lot of times I'll bring my Ibuki to a boss fight because you'll notice she doesn't really have any survivability, and the boss is just not packing any significant defensive buffs that are unremovable. It's like a coup boss or something. They pop the dodge skill, and Ibuki just says, nope, you're taking this damage, big boy. So even though technically built-in Pierce invincibility and like Pierce defense would be better, it's still not bad. You can still get rid of a lot of annoying buffs if the boss is trying to slow you down. It does reduce their critical attack chance by 20% for 3 turns. Keep in mind, this NP is very spammable, so the goal of this is to start getting the enemy to have no critical attack chance, so you're not getting crit, meaning your guys can stay alive, and Ibuki being a berserker does not like crits. Crits are going to cause her to go, ooh, ouchie, I didn't like that. So being able to spam this and really just neuter their ability to crit you is actually kind of nice on this character. And then obviously she's got the really strong Earth Attribute Power mod. This is why she does get kind of directly compared with Summer Melucine, because they are both rocking the Earth Attribute Power mod, but then Summer Melucine is also rocking the Chaotic Power mod on top of that. Even though it's not super large, it does give her another edge. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at both of their kits, Summer Melucine is a very selfish character, right? Like, she's kind of just doing things for herself. I mean, the 80% battery is to ensure that even if you run into a node with one enemy on it, you can still at least refund 20% of your NP. That way you can still keep going with the farming. Ibuki over here is not only pretty good on her own, but is also really good at helping the party out. It kind of depends on what you need in your box. Do you need somebody that is just going to be super strong on their own? You don't really need to do any multi-core stuff, or do you want to open up your box to some of those multi-core setups? Because then I think Ibuki is just a lot better. Attack, crit damage, NP gain, a targetable 30% buster and arts buff that also lowers skill cooldown, and she still has her own 50% battery to rely on. I mean, that's just really hard to beat in a DPS servant. I mean, even her Bond CE is really nice when it comes to supporting the party. It's just another free 8% arts, buster, and 10% damage against Earth attribute enemies. It's just really strong. Obviously, this character is still a must summon. I mean, they're still my go-to arts looper on the JP side of things, and I don't think that was ever really in question for her. It's more so, do you want her or do you want Summer Melucine? And like I said, if you want somebody that can kind of help you out in bringing up some of your other characters that might not be able to finish out the node, but that little bit of extra power and just someone that can clear a way for you, then Ibuki's the obvious choice. But if you want somebody that's just going to kind of hard, beat their way through all the nodes by themselves, individual power, then Summer Melucine's your way to go. I mean, Summer Melucine's got a strong NP damage buff in her third skill, and that pairs way better with somebody like Oberon. However, at the end of the day, this is going to go against a lot of the meta, people in the comments down below. These characters are both so good that you can pretty much ride out with either one of your choosing. I mean, like I said, I've pretty much been using Ibuki as my de facto arts looper on JP for the last 2 years, and I've never really regretted it. The first year, ironically enough, we were riding out with NP1. That was a little bit of a struggle. There were some nodes that might have gotten a little RNG dependent on if, she needed like the proper face card or whatnot. But ever since I've bagged NP2, thanks to the Destiny Order summon, I have had no issues with this character. In fact, for the last lottery that we just got on JP, I've just brought Ibuki and just kind of clapped it up, no problem. So if you're kind of thinking along the lines of, well, is Ibuki going to be able to clear all the content that's coming out for me? Yeah, she's going to do just fine. Like, she's a very, very strong character. And if you like big dragon women, then this might be the character for you. I mean, I can't really sing her praises enough. I mean, my last 2 years of streaming and using her all the time is pretty much all the evidence I need for how good this character is. So if you want to join the Ibuki Nation, go ahead and summon for this character. You can do so with no regrets. I mean, the only other hype character that's coming out for the rest of this year, I would say, is Yugioh Kenshin. But hey, that's all the way in like end of November. That's a single target anyway. So why don't you just beef up your arts AoE characters? Let's just do a little bit of beefing up for our loopers. And by the way, they do also work really well together when going into 90++ nodes, because Ibuki can take out the AoE enemies, and then you can just use Kenshin to just wipe out all of the other people that are single targets. So they also work really well together if that is something you're interested in. That being said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. We will be getting around to Ruler Scotty. I'm going to try to get her done before the anniversary stuff that kind of dropped for JP, because then she's going to get lost to the weeds, because I'm assuming we're going to have new character, we're going to have Destiny Order stuff, GSSR stuff, potential free characters going on, whatever they're doing with Olga. So going to try to make sure I get Scotty's thing out first before anniversary hits, because otherwise we're going to lose her. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop yapping. You guys have yourselves a nice rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace late, guys.